This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Thursday, August 27th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Hurricane Laura making landfall, weakening as it causes catastrophic storm surge. Praise for the Trump administration coming from his second in command, the plea to voters leading up to the final night of the RNC. COVID lockdown. Are the restrictions really worth it? And praise through it all how churches are finding creative ways to spread the gospel. All those stories and more are ahead today in this edition of CBN NewsWatch. We begin this half hour with our top story. Hurricane Laura pounded the Gulf Coast for hours overnight. It brought vicious wind, torrential rains, and rising seawater as it roared over southwestern Louisiana near the Texas border. This is video from Orange, Texas, a town near that border. Authorities warn it could sink entire communities in both states.
If you think you're safe because you made it through Rita in southwest Louisiana, understand this storm is going to be more powerful.
We are keeping our eyes peeled on where Hurricane Laura is headed next. Here's a look at the forecast of the storm in this report from AccuWeather.
Hurricane Laura made landfall near Cameron, Louisiana around 1 a.m. Central Time early Thursday. We continue to see Laura track further inland, bringing in heavy bouts of rain as well as strong winds. Here's a look at some of the top reports. Lake Charles, Louisiana getting hit the hardest with 132-mile-per-hour wind gusts being reported out to Port Arthur, 72-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and 54-mile-per-hour wind gusts out to Beaumont, Texas. As we head into the rest of today, still very important to remain weather alert as we're still seeing those bands and strong winds drift further to the east as well as to the north. We are moving, the storm is moving at 15 miles per hour and winds associated with the storm at 110 miles per hour, making it now a Category 2. Once again, at landfall, it was a Category 4. So it is decreasing in terms of the strength, but there's still plenty of moisture as well as winds. And some of those winds are starting to get a bit of rotation. We do have tornado watches out until 8 a.m. Central Time. That does include Lake Charles as well as Baton Rouge and even into Alexandria, Louisiana. We want to remain once again alert as the storm tracks further to the north, bringing the risk for rain, some of which will be heavy through Arkansas and eventually leading into the mid-south and northeast. So here at AccuWeather, we have our AccuWeather Real Impact Scale, which is on a 6-point scale, below 1 up to 5. We will continue to see this Real Impact Scale at 4. What does all this mean? Well, we account for the winds, flooding, rain, storm surge, and even the economic toll it will take on the community. And we do think we'll see some major structural damage continue as we've already seen buildings blown out. But on top of that, flooding, rainfall will still continue. As I mentioned, even points to the north of Louisiana with an AccuWeather local storm max in some spots of 12 inches of rain, and wind gusts can extend as far north as Tennessee and Kentucky into our Friday evening.
American heroes who built, defend, and maintain this country shared the spotlight at the RNC Wednesday. Vice President Mike Pence closed the evening by praising administration accomplishments, looking toward another term, and setting the political table for President Trump's speech tonight. CBN's White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has more.
At historic Fort McHenry, Vice President Mike Pence formally accepted the RNC's nomination, as President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump made a surprise trip to witness the moment.
The spirit of heroism thrives in the presence of tyranny.
And the theme, Land of Heroes, was on full display.
This evening, we look at heroes in our land.
They've stood at the forefront throughout this pandemic.
We are a nation of heroes.
Congressman Crenshaw shared his experience with heroism in service of our country.
8 years ago, in the fields of Helmand Province, Afghanistan, a close friend and teammate laid down cover fire against Taliban insurgents so that I could walk, blind and bloodied, to the medevac helicopter and survive. But he didn't. Dave Worson was killed 2 months later. He died a hero to this great country.
In a very personal moment, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany spoke, deciding to undergo a double mastectomy in 2018 to prevent breast cancer.
As I came out of anesthesia, one of the first calls I received was from Ivanka Trump. As I recovered, my phone rang again. It was President Trump calling to check on me. I was blown away. Here was the leader of the free world caring about my circumstance.
President Trump helped me shatter a barrier in the world of politics.
As Trump's campaign manager, Conway is credited for helping him win the White House and then served as counselor to the president, a post she plans to leave at the end of the month.
He has stood by me, and he will stand up for you.
Be a radical for our republic, for which I stand, one nation under God.
Paralyzed by a car accident, Madison Cawthorn stood in support of President Trump as he runs for Congress in North Carolina.
God protected my mind and my ability to speak. So I say to people who feel forgotten, ignored, and invisible, I see you. I hear you.
Vice President Mike Pence agreed as he took the stage and prayed for the nation as Hurricane Laura bears down on the Gulf Coast.
This is a serious storm, and we urge all those in the affected areas to heed state and local authorities. Stay safe.
The audience then rose to its feet with the appearance of the Commander-in-Chief, who came to support his VP. President Trump will close out the RNC tonight by accepting his party's nomination, delivering a speech on the White House South Lawn. Ben Kennedy, CBN News.
And thank you. Authorities in Kenosha, Wisconsin have identified the police officer who shot a 29-year-old black man in the back. In a statement released last night, the Wisconsin Department of Justice said officers attempted to arrest Jacob Blake, but did not say why. According to the statement, officers tried stopping Blake with a taser, but that did not work. The DOJ said Officer Rustin Chesky fired the shots. He's worked with the Kenosha Police Department for 7 years. The shooting has led to days of peaceful and violent protests nationwide.
The community has been through some extremely traumatic events in the last few days. The people of this community deserve to have the opportunity to grieve. They deserve to have the opportunity to come together, to protest peacefully, to call for the change that they would like to see, and ultimately to work to heal this community. People who are coming to the community to commit arson or violence, first of all, if they think they are serving some agenda, they are wrong. All they are doing is creating chaos.
Blake admitted he had a knife during the DOJ investigation, and agents recovered a knife from the floorboard of his car. No other weapon was found. A civil rights investigation is underway, and the president has said he is sending in the National Guard to restore law and order in Kenosha. The CEO of the Chinese video app TikTok has resigned. Kevin Mayer informed employees of his decision today. Kevin Mayer's departure comes amid trade talks between the U.S. and China. President Donald Trump accused the app of being a potential threat to U.S. national security. Trump threatened a ban on TikTok unless its operators sold its assets to a U.S.-based company within 90 days. Microsoft has been involved in negotiations to purchase the app. It is unclear if Mayer's resignation would have any impact on Microsoft's plans. Coming up, lockdowns not working. What one researcher says about the schools opening back up in the midst of a pandemic. But first, here's a look at today's trending stories at CBNNews.com.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Many schools are reopening around the country despite the COVID-19 pandemic, yet other schools remain closed, opting for online distance learning. And in many states, businesses are still unable to operate at full capacity. Are these continued lockdowns necessary? On this week's episode of The Global Lane, Michael Betrus discusses his new book, COVID-19, Lockdowns on Trial. Betrus says at this point, lockdowns are a disproportionate response.
I think when we first locked down, there was an expectation that we might be at risk of up to that 2.2 million deaths and an overflow of capacity in ICUs of a tenfold shortfall in a worst case and a threefold shortfall best case. That did not prove to be the case even by April. And so what we've done is sort of move the goalposts to something that's really not even practical at this point for us to use as a measuring stick for us to reopen. And yet we're barely at an epidemic level now. If you look at actual COVID-19 deaths, not counting the backdated ones that get included in daily totals, we're probably at about 5% of total deaths per day. That's barely even an epidemic level. So it's not that COVID-19 isn't real, it's what is the proportionate response to this? Schools closing, businesses, deaths of despair, 40 million people unemployed. It's a disproportionate response at this stage.
Well, let's explore that a little bit. Now, I know when the lockdowns first began, just about everything shut down at the beginning of spring, I think it was, in mid-March. We were told the lockdowns would last only several weeks until we flattened that curve. So what happened? Why have these shutdowns continued more than 5 months now?
Boy, if you could answer that. So one of the things is polling. That was the connection that I drew. So you've got a lot of media attention that's hyped up on cases, which at this point we're at around 6 million. But based on random samplings that have happened, we probably have 75 to 100 million people in America that have been infected. So you've got this sort of panic in the populace, and I see it. I see it with all over the place, not just Texas, but when I've traveled this summer. And so the polling says we're not ready, we should be locked down, there's great fear. And I think that the politicians are buckling a little bit to those polls, but none of it makes sense. The other challenge that I really see getting through this is going to be around liability. I think that universities, K through 12 schools, there's a bit of fear around what happens if somebody gets sick, even if there's an outlier case. And so until those institutions and even businesses too get indemnified, I think it's going to be a long rest of 2020.
Here in the United States, we now have more than 180,000. Just how accurate are those numbers? It seems like the death rate is declining drastically. You'd mentioned down to 5%. It was 84%, I guess, on March 13th, but the risk now 5%. So some people would argue that's because of the lockdowns.
So that's a great question, and I'm so glad you asked. So 180,000, we're actually up higher than that in all-cause mortality during this time. So the CDC has conceded that deaths are overstated. Based on calculations I've run and things that I pieced together from the CDC, it appears that we're probably at about 100,000 actual COVID-19 caused deaths. So we're up about almost 200,000 in all cause. So the difference in that 100,000 of extra deaths, you really classify those as lockdown deaths.
How about masks? There's a lawsuit in Illinois right now because some schools there have reopened without requiring students to wear masks. Joe Biden wants to have everyone wear masks. He wants to make that mandatory. So what have you found in your research about the effectiveness of masks in preventing the spread of COVID-19?
Prior to COVID-19, there really was no medical data that supported or journal analysis that supported face coverings or non-N95 respirator masks as effective at blocking airborne particles, aerosols, pathogens for a virus. So what you saw coming in February, our Surgeon General said, don't do masks, it's not necessary. Dr. Fauci was sort of, hey, if you want to, go ahead, but it's not necessary. And then we sort of shifted into that. And to give you a couple data points, an N95 is 97% effective at blocking pathogens. A surgical mask tied, not loop, tied is 68%. If it's got loops, it's only 38%. And typical face coverings that you see people wearing is only effective in the teens. So it might be better than nothing, but it certainly is not effective. And the validation of that is if you look at Hawaii's been very, very disciplined in mandating that. And months after that, they've had sort of a per capita explosion of cases. You've seen this in Japan, in the Philippines. Los Angeles started right around June 1st having a mask order, and in July they ended up having a big surge in cases. And so it's okay to wear them. I think there's a psychological benefit to it, but as far as mandating it and expecting that to be a slowdown or blockage of it it just hasn't, the data hasn't supported it.
And for a look at other important issues in the news, including an interview with Tennessee Senator Marcia Blackburn, tune into The Global Lane. You can watch it tonight at 9:30 Eastern, and you can find that on the CBN News Channel. One African country is celebrating a milestone this morning. Nigeria is free of wild polio. 25 years ago, thousands of children in Africa were paralyzed by the virus, but the Africa Regional Certification Commission has declared the continent free from the disease. A vaccination campaign took place, which involved a huge effort to reach remote and dangerous places. Today, more than 95% of Africa's population has been immunized. Nigeria is the last African country to be declared free from the disease. Unrest in some parts of the country, but nearby peace reigns. Coming up, how thousands of Christians are discovering new ways to pray. Stay with us.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy?
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain, get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. As uncertainty rocks the nation, a spiritual awakening is also taking place as churches deal with social distancing restrictions. Many are finding alternative ways to get together and spread light in the midst of chaos. Charlene Aaron is on the story.
It's hard to imagine that less than 200 miles from this scene in Seattle, you see something like this in Oregon. We're here to lift up the name of Jesus. A wave of revival is growing. In Portland, thousands of Christians recently lifted their voices in prayer, praise, and worship for an event called Riots to Revival, an effort to heal the brokenness resulting from the pandemic. Just hours before, protesters lit fire to the city's police headquarters. Sean Foyt has been a leader of the worship movement.
Watching God show up, we've spent the last 15 years I have going into, a lot of really dark, hard nations around the world, North Korea, Iraq, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, and now we get to do it in our own nation.
In Seattle, the area formerly known as CHOP or Chaz had become a focal point for protesters who took over the neighborhood earlier this summer. Demonstrators basically took over this part of the city following the death of George Floyd. A group recently tried to shut down a prayer rally there, but Foyt says the power of God took over.
The Lord started to move, even on some of the Satanists that came. God started to move. We were able to pray and minister with a lot of them.
In California, where indoor worship services have been banned, churches have been discovering new ways to serve their communities. Pastor Mickey Stoner of San Diego's Rock Church shared on CBN's Prayer Link how God is using the pandemic to the church's advantage.
We've had 135 churches in San Diego come together. We had a prayer event, 11 different locations. We had over 15,000 people around San Diego or online. We call it We Pray San Diego, praying for an hour for the Lord, his work, his revival to be taking place.
In July, on the sandy shores of Huntington Beach, hundreds came to worship, pray, and receive salvation as part of an event called Saturate OC. Many gave their lives to Christ and were baptized. Jesse Green, one of the event's organizers, also spoke with CBN News.
People are just being set free, and there's so much joy and so much peace, and people are being set free from depression and suicidal thoughts. And it feels like what God would always want the earth to look like.
A similar outcome recently played out in Chicago, where deadly violence has been rampant. A ministry called The Last Reformation flooded the city through tent revivals and street evangelism.
There was hundreds of people that went out in the street, all different neighborhoods and areas. People have been really receptive. People were getting healed on the street. They were coming back to the tent. They were getting baptized. They were giving their life to Jesus.
Earlier this year, a prayer and fasting movement involving 1,000 churches called Awaken Tennessee sparked a revival that lasted several months. Pastors reported record salvations and mass miracles as a result of the Holy Spirit showing up and taking over. All reasons why Foyt hopes to take his mobile ministry to even more cities.
God is going to flip the script on these cities, that no place is too hard, no place is too dark.
Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Winter is ending in the Southern Hemisphere, and country after country, South Africa, Australia, Argentina, has had a surprise. Their steps against COVID-19 also apparently blocked the flu. But there is no guarantee the Northern Hemisphere will avoid the twin epidemics as its own flu season looms while the coronavirus still rages. U.S. health officials are pushing Americans to get vaccinated against the flu in record numbers this fall, so hospitals aren't overwhelmed with a dual twin-demic.
We still have less than 50% of adults embracing the flu vaccine. My goal this year is to see if we can get that up to at least 65%. It's going to be so important with flu and COVID coming at the same time that we really try to take flu off the table as much as possible, and embracing the flu vaccine is one of the most important things we can do.
The Centers for Disease Control is urging record flu vaccinations, preferably by October. Coming up, a fight with coronavirus turns into an act of heroism. How a toy company is honoring America's frontline workers. Stay with us.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
How'd you like to get a redo on your health, on your body, on your arteries, so you could have the energy you had 20 years ago? The great news is you can. I'm Dr. Mike Roizen, chair of the Wellness Institute at the Cleveland Clinic. I've written 4 New York Times bestsellers. But even better than having to read all that, you can listen to this DVD and watch it. Protect your heart? Yes, you can. Here's how.
Go to CBN.com or call 1-800-700-7000 for your free copy of Protect Your Heart. Let the medical experts show you their new discoveries on how to avoid heart disease and even reverse it. Easy steps to uncover the hidden dangers in your medicine cabinet, reduce stress, and get a complete do-over for your health. Call 1-800-700-7000. That's 1-800-700-7000. Or go to CBN.com to claim your free copy of Protect Your Heart.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
Toy company Mattel is celebrating EMT paramedics with an American Girl doll. WTVR reports a Virginia ambulance worker was one of 5 national winners in the Heroes with Heart contest. The company received thousands of nominations. April O'Quinn was honored for risking her life to save others. April's niece nominated her for the award, telling the company her aunt contracted the coronavirus but chose to return to work after her long recovery. Each winner received a one-of-a-kind custom doll, an outfit in the hero's likeness, and a $250 gift card. Beautiful. Time now for your Thursday Thankful, and I hope you'll join me in this prayer of gratitude. Father, thank you for your grace. It reaches up to me at my highest mountain and extends down to me in my lowest valley. Thank you for that grace. With that word, I encourage you to make today a thankful Thursday. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.